Hey again! Welcome back, and welcome to another time lapse. This one, I wanted a bit of a spooky feel to it. I wanted to draw a pumpkin king. So the idea here is that once he was a human, but after getting cursed by a witch of some sort, he becomes this monstrous pumpkin. So here I'm drawing his human version, and right now I'm just coming up with sketches. I'm trying to figure out different posing and how can I show off he's confident and proud and kind of showing he's maybe a little bit spoiled. I like the cane idea, so I kept the cane. And after deciding on poses, it was elimination time, which just meant I went in and I tried to figure out a head shape, an eye shape, to figure out which one I wanted to go with posing wise, as I'm trying to get a method down for how I want the shapes and the sizes to work. So it's a thing of pose first, then face, then go from there. So I have a bunch of different poses, and then I try to figure out the head. And if the head looks nice, then I'll continue and go forth. Here I'm trying to figure out the eye shape. It looked very feminine to me as I'm trying to figure it out. So I'm going and I'm moving, and it's just about pushing and pulling all of the pixels together. It's just a matter of figuring out, okay, well, maybe there's a little bit too much eyelash, maybe there's a little bit too much eye, maybe there's a little bit too much mouth, maybe there's not enough mouth, right? And here, it was a really big struggle as I wanted him to look down at his nails, like, I don't have enough time. You're wasting my time. That's what I wanted the expression to be, but as you can see, I couldn't really get him to look down at his nails, or his hands even. That one kind of, but it looks more like he's glancing to the side. But I ended up not choosing that one, and I didn't want him to look angry. I wanted him to look bored. And since I couldn't really get that idea down, I went to the next idea. First, just pushing and pushing around. And this one I thought, alright, maybe this is a haughty pose, where his mouth is open, his eyes are closed, and it's like he's telling you something about himself. That's the idea here, but I like the idea of having his eyes shown. So this one was also cancelled out, and as you see, just cancelled completely. And I decided to go with the first pose, as I like the idea of him looking off to the side. The other one was supposed to be down at his nails, didn't work out. And here, what I'm doing next is blobbing out the colors. I'm trying to figure out where things go and line positioning. I think I'm just going to have to do maybe one color, or I'm not too sure. After I do all the colors, once I go in with the outline of black, it looks awful, the inside and outside, so it's a matter of fixing things, tweaking things, and I didn't enjoy it. But the idea here is he has a big overcoat on, like your scarecrows and your, what would you call it? The horsemen of the dead, those guys with the pumpkin hats. That's the idea here. So I have a lot of tailcoats ideas, and I'm just going over and trying to figure out the overall shape and the silhouette. I thought maybe his tailcoat could have a swooshy effect. That didn't work out, so I went back and undid the swooshy effect. Just kept it simple, and as you can see with the outline, didn't work as I thought it would. But I kept on going. I tried to go section by section. Then again, the colors came out wrong or wonky, or at the very least, I didn't like the way the values were going together. I have a really bad habit of making my shadows warm and my lights warm, when my shadows need to be dark and my lights need to be warm. So I'm going in here and trying to figure out the tailcoat position, the position of the arms, the position of the head. Realize maybe he needs a neck. Maybe that will make him look a little bit better. The purpose of doing the sketch is to get an idea. And then here it's a attempt at refining and hopefully honing in on those aspects. I am constantly checking my references and posing, and I'll definitely have those up somewhere. So you can see what I mean in terms of trying to get him to look a certain way, look right. Initially, the sketch had a very slanted, it was far more dynamic pose, but it was very hard to figure out the pose itself. I'll probably have to do more studies. But overall, I toned back the dynamic part of it so that the shoulders and the waist weren't as bent. And here I'm trying to figure out the shadows of the tail coat. Yeah, the collar, and overall just trying to get a certain feel for everything. The way the coat and the, what do you call that white part? The ruffly bits. I try adding shadow to see if it feels nice. Didn't feel nice, so I took it away. I'm just going over and over again trying to push and pull with all of the features. I'm moving things around and trying to make things feel nice, but one thing that started to bug me was the way his shoulders were, the way his chest was. It kind of looks like it's leaning in one direction, right? Or maybe he would be leaning on his cane in the sense that one shoulder's forward, one shoulder's backwards. But I decided to go with neither. And you can see I toyed around with this hair for a second, but I'm trying to figure out what he could possibly be doing, as every time I try to draw the overlap of his coat, it didn't look right. So I went back and just kept tweaking and editing. You can see with the buttons and everything. Next I realized, okay, something's wrong with his shoulders and his torso. So I went in and I did an overlap, and I'm just trying to figure out what shape feels right. And after I get the shape in the outline, I just go ahead and delete the red and go back and try again. Start fresh without all the shading and everything. One of my Achilles heel, I keep saying it, but clothing is hard for me, hair is hard for me, and the only way to get better is to do it. So I'm glad I'm doing these weekly time lapses. I think I'll stick to maybe doing weekly time lapses of people, just so I can get better at hair and clothing to hopefully just overall improve. What do you think? Here I'm trying to keep in the outline, keep in the pants, and I think going forward, maybe I'll try to better look at different styles. I don't really like how the outlines turned out, in how they seem very important. I'm just trying here to keep in mind the outline and try to have a sense of what's going on and understand why I'm drawing the lines I am. It's a matter of pushing and pulling and does this look right, squinting, looking my head, taking a few breaks sometimes to just make sure my eyes are staying fresh. And it didn't work. Maybe it looks like a pilot jacket more so than a coat, like a tailcoat. I mean, yeah, it is a tailcoat, or is the bottom part of the tailcoat. Tailcoat. I'm not too sure on that one. Here I'm trying to see, okay, I want the silhouette to stay very slim, as the idea behind Pumpkin King is the whole Scarecrow and Jack Skellington. So I want a very tall and slender figure to more so monsterify him when I turn him into the pumpkin part of the Pumpkin King. I'm just going in overall and trying to figure out, okay, hand, maybe there's like the gold orb you see on canes, and then we have, doesn't even have to be brown, as that would make it look like a stick. So I just went with solid black for the cane. Figured that was fine. It was, I make the rules around here. I don't have to listen to the rules of the road. They're my rules. I'm just going over and over again and trying to figure out, okay, here for his arm, it's back in perspective. How can I tweak this? How can I make it look better than it is? And it was tricky, and I'm not that happy with it, but I'm happy with what I was able to do. As in, come up with a solution, even if not the best, it was a solution. Here, I'm trying to reposition his arm, everything, just trying to make sure. If I look at it, can I tell it looks nice and slim? And yes, I'd say I accomplished my goal. Here, I try to add just overall the boots. And again, like with the cane, I think to myself, you know what, let's just make it black. Keep it nice and simple, as the boots aren't the focus, the cane isn't the focus. He's supposed to really focus on his head. So it's just black, as it's also really tricky to figure out the silhouette of the boots. There's a certain pose. I did choose a really tricky pose in the sense of the shoe being flat and everything. But I'm happy with how the feet came out. Certainly a lot easier just because I made it all black. But there's certain heels and boots. There's heels in these boots that you can see that I'm trying to make sure I emphasize. Then I just fill everything in black so your mind can do the work. I don't have to do the work for you. And it works. I think it works. And in saying that, I realized, okay, maybe not solid black. Maybe we can do a bit of a shine, like a silver shine to show off the boot part. And then I add more just the heel or the cuff of the boot. After that, I go into his pants, and would you call these khakis? The very tan pants that you can wear? I feel like they're khaki textured, but not quite khaki. After I finish up his clothing, I move on to hair, and oh boy, I wasn't sure what I was doing, and I was doing too much. That one made him look more like a delinquent, and I'm going for very haughty prince and very up in his emotions and I don't care about you, that sort of thing. So I thought, okay, maybe more rich, maybe more swooshy. And it feels like the more I add it onto him, the more feminine he felt. There we go, I did it. And it was just a matter of, okay, is it the hairstyle? Is it the face? Is it the lashes? So it's going over and trying to figure it out. I wanted to make sure I didn't certainly give him a Karen haircut, but I love doing curls and swirls. So that's one of my favorites. I'm thinking of just pumpkin. I want his hair to be orange to resemble pumpkin. For when he has the pumpkin on his head, I want to lead up to it, right? Here I'm thinking, okay, it's like a nice through line between the end of the hair to the eyes to the other side of the hair. That looks nice, but I didn't end up liking it, so I started all over. And at this point, I think, or in another point, I pull up references from Pokemon games to help with hair. I definitely do think I'm going to have to do some one-on-one studies with just working out Pokemon hair and the way their characters look, as especially the sprites in black and white. They look great, and they're nice, and you can see I am thinking. So I go back in with a different idea. I'm trying to make sure I have the shadow colors is cool, light colors is warm, going back and forth and trying to make sure I keep that balance. I want you to be able to see everything that I'm doing in the sense of color values, as if the color values are too close, well, yeah, if the values are too close, I need to change something. That's about it. It's a thing of going back and forth, mixing and figuring things out. I thought maybe Spiky, but Spiky kind of gives off a very protagonist vibe, and he's no protagonist. I'd say he's the video game villain, but he's that video game villain that might be like a joke villain the first time you meet him, but he's actually really strong. I can see that. Maybe he learns or he evolves. Here I figure out, okay, I like the whoosh, I like the curves, but let's change it around just a little bit to add a little more definition. And I quite like that one, this pose or this hairstyle right here, but again, I was getting very feminine in the whoosh. It's a very cute hairstyle, but and this as well as what am I thinking? I'm thinking Helen from The Incredibles. I didn't even think of this when I was looking at this, but that's what I'm getting. But I'm trying to think of, okay, maybe it's more so like Nosferatu. Not Nosferatu, but it's another vampire where it's just cloud hair. But I'm going in, I'm trying to make sure I keep those curls in mind, trying to make it seem pumpkin without pumpkin, where it's very round. So since pumpkin's are round, his hair is round. And I'm struggling with the lighting. I'm constantly looking back and forth between my references and my hairstyles, and I definitely think down the line I'm gonna have to come back to this guy as I mean, this is the first time I've drawn a guy before, and this is the second time I've drawn a sprite in this size at least, or let's say maybe fourth. It's a learning process, but I'm happy with how it came out. All I'm doing here is just trying to think, okay, lighting. Lighting's coming from the top, so shadows are at the bottom. I'm changing the lighting, I'm changing the values to make sure it's bright, and then I'm going along the bottom and the back and the outlines, trying to make sure all of those are good and nice to look at. So it's tricky. It's always tricky to do it with colors, I think. Definitely that is a place where palettes come into play, as it gives you a good baseline. I think maybe I should try a palette challenge or two just to see what it's like. I've done it once with just grayscale, but maybe I'll try again sometime. Here all I'm doing is just, okay, hairstyle, you vex me, but I'm gonna try. And try I did, and I'm just going over and adding in more lighting, more detail, and he's just about done. All I add is, instead of the black outline, I make it a lighter yellow outline to kind of make it warm, and that is all there is to that. So here is the finished piece. I think I'll put it here, or how about here, huh? Here's the finished piece. What do you think? Does it scream Pumpkin King, or at least spoiled Pumpkin Prince, maybe? I'm hoping to do a second part soon for the monster-fied version, and you can kind of see in the background, I kind of imagine that his monster version kind of looming over him with the eyes. And how'd it turn out? That'll be it for me though. Thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and thank you to Colonel for being a Patreon member of mine. And with that, I will see you all next week, or next week for this series at least, the time-lapse series. Okay, bye-bye!